Now on the Business Radio X network, Conscious Capitalism, elevating humanity through business in Southern Arizona. Your hosts, Sarah McCraren and Jeremy Neese.
Southern Arizona does good business, and we want to talk about it. Welcome to the Conscious Capitalism radio show and podcast, streaming live and on demand from the Tucson Business Radio X studio. Conscious Capitalism is an international movement promoting business as a force for good. The Conscious Capitalism movement has 40-plus chapters in the United States, including Arizona, with lots of activity down here in the southern part of our state. We are bringing people together to make it easier for Southern Arizona businesses to do good business and to partner with others, other organizations who know successful companies value all of their stakeholders, including the communities in which they operate.
On this show, we want to shine a light on real-world examples of good business happening right in our own backyards. We invite leaders in our community to share their stories and experience, to tell us about their personal journey through the world of business, and to let us know what makes their organization great and how they go about bringing value to Southern Arizona. If you'd like to learn more about Conscious Capitalism and the community of people forming around it, you can always visit consciouscapitalismaz.com or consciouscapitalism.org, or you can reach out to Sarah and I. Our profiles are on the Business Radio X webpage. So let's get into some good business. Introduce you to the voices who are going to be participating in today's conversations. For myself, I am Jeremy Neese, one of your hosts. My day job is with Retirement Evolutions. We provide long-range wealth planning services for individuals, families, and business leaders. My interest in this show, Conscious Capitalism, and all of the other related people under that umbrella or organizations and ideologies is to make life better for our human family. I've got young children. I'd like to think that we're going to have a good place for them to camp out at in the decades to come.
And I'm Sarah McCraren from McCraren Compliance. We do workplace safety, specializing in MSHA, OSHA, and DOT. And our purpose is to create communities where we all watch out for each other. So that's what safety means over at McCraren. So for our guests today, we have Frank Velasquez. Frank is inspired by the notion to dare greatly. He leads and collaborates with passion, authenticity, and an open mind. A racial equity and social justice advocate, he connects the stories that make each of us who we are and are the stories that inextricably connect us to each other. And he uses interesting tongue-tangling words in his bio. A natural storyteller, Frank loves the task of bringing greater local, statewide, and national attention to poverty and inequity through the work at Job Path. Thank you for being here, Frank.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we also have Haley Toman. Haley is the Associate Director at the Direct Center for Independence. She is originally from Michigan and moved to Tucson in 2007. So she's been here a while, but can't quite, claim native. She's spent over 10 years in the nonprofit sector, most of which has centered around educating employers on the benefits of hiring individuals with disabilities and then linking those businesses to resources where they can connect with job seekers. Haley believes the best communities are where everyone has the opportunity to be productive and that the most effective companies have a diverse company culture. Thank you for being here, Haley.
Thank you.
So, truth be told, I sit in this chair as a fan of your respective organizations and under your collective leadership. I first encountered you both at the Tucson Metro, the Golden Cactus. It's golden or copper?
Copper.
See, I was so blown away by their stories, I forgot the name of the venue. You were both nominated in the category of workforce development. And one of you two actually hoisted some hardware away.
That would be linkages.
Everybody was worthy, there's no doubt. So certainly with the concept of workforce development, conscious capitalists, we need people in the organizations that are going to help thrive or help grow and help organizations thrive. And so the services that you both are bringing to the community and society at large are just insurmountably huge. So thank you both for your time and your energy and your stewardship of what you're bringing to the table. So I think that's probably a good place to start. I'm a fan because I already know your story, but we should probably let everybody else listening kind of understand that. Either one of you feel ready to rock with that question? Tell us.
Sure, I can start. So Linkages up until January 1st was a nonprofit that really focuses on advocacy and helping employers tap into an untapped talent pool, and that's the disability community. And so we, advocate to them on all the benefits of why to hire people with disabilities and, just make that successful and link them then to candidates either through our partner agencies or through our job board. As of January 1st, we've joined forces with Direct Center for Independence.
Nice.
So now Linkages is a program of Directs, which is a really good move because they do a lot of work in advocacy in general for people with disabilities. So it's been a really good move.
Great.
But I'm happy to focus on the Linkages side of it since that is the piece where you'd link to candidates and things like that. So.
And I am Frank again, and I work with I'm the executive director at JobPath. And it's really hard to say what we do quickly, but I will do my best.
We got an hour, Frank.
So
pace yourself.
I could take 2. So I got to be wary of that. So
There goes that storyteller.
I know. So what we do in a nutshell is we're providing opportunities for underserved adults to get into really good positions through job training and educational opportunities to get into positions that are in demand in Pima County, but are going to pay a livable wage. We want to make sure that they get into actual careers. So nursing, aviation technology, a number of other allied healthcare programs, and a number of other technical type programs. Those are the programs that we focus on. Our major partner is Pima Community College. They provide training. They do the training. We provide the support. And what that really means is students come in, and they don't realize the level, especially those in poverty, come into the college, don't realize the level of challenges that they're going to face. And they come in unprepared. And so what happens is they end up falling out. We can come in and help them, have a holistic conversation with them and say, hey, what do you need? We're going to provide those support systems. We can build other support systems for you. We can leverage resources. Our goal is to get you to graduation and get into a good paying job. And our results work. 90% graduation rates and 80% job attainment rates. And most incredibly, $33,000 increase in their direct wages from pre-training to post-training. And it's life-changing.
No question about it. Boy, that's solid. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to ask, so, lots of, great stuff, important work that you're doing. But what would you say in, your experiences in each of your, your roles with these organizations up to this point are you most proud of bringing, into the community? Too many, right? There's a lot.
I think we're looking at
I
each
know,
other
you're
most
most proud. Yeah.
That is a deep one.
I would say, I think, and I'm probably going to stumble through this, but I think what I'm most proud of, quite honestly, is the impact we're making in the county. We do an annual report around economic impact, and I'm going to balance this truly with, it's not just about the numbers. We get to hear the stories every day of our students. And I was sharing earlier with Jeremy and Sarah, you did hear this when you came to our office. Their stories are incredible. They're going through things I couldn't even dream of making myself get through. And so I'm most proud of the journey that they take and then the success when they get that job and they send that email to us saying, I got me a job. And it is in the paying them in the 50s, 50 grand or more. It's incredible seeing their journey where they were to see where they are now.
Yeah, I like that. So it's not really about some sort of number or statistic or, how although you've made huge contributions, that you could quantify, it's about each individual story and how you connect with these people and just knowing how their lives have changed and they're, in turn taking that out and changing other people's lives.
Absolutely.
It's pretty good. What do you got, Haley?
Well, I feel like now I'm going to go the opposite angle, but maybe that's because when I took over as executive director of linkages, we weren't necessarily tracking all the outcomes. We were really focused more on inputs. And so as we changed over the years, we started tracking the outcomes, how many people are getting placed by our partner businesses, and that number's grown every year that we've been tracking it, and that feels really good because it means we're refining our processes, we're getting better, we're getting more efficient. The employers we partner with are seeing the value and maybe figuring out how to hire more people from us, and so that's probably what I'm most proud of as far as when I was the executive director of linkages.
Well, that's cool. It makes perfect sense. So it's really great to, to have that connection, that feel, to see those personal stories. Every single story matters. And yet, if you don't, without knowing, the bigger picture and the total impact, you can sometimes, get lost, and in some cases even like lose your mission, lose your path a little bit. So that makes sense.
Well, I think one thing that I don't know if I was super clear on about linkages is we don't do direct services. So we often don't know the job seeker. We do know some, and so we have a few stories, that give you the energy to keep doing what you're doing. But just due to different regulations like HIPAA, we don't have that information. We're truly advocates. And so seeing that data improve year over year really does kind of give you the kind of like, yes, you are doing something good. You are doing something valuable. People are benefiting from this. And every once in a while, we'll corner one of our partner agencies and be like, tell me a life that's been changed, because you do need that too. You do.
Absolutely. So, Haley, let's talk a little bit more about those numbers. Help everybody understand, like, what were some of your placement opportunities over the last couple of years, and how does it work? Where does the rubber hit the road in your service offering within linkages?
So we have people who, boots on the ground, are knocking on doors and collaborating with businesses, and they will help you understand all the benefits of hiring people with disabilities from you're hiring someone who is adding to your diversity. Being a person with a disability makes you part of the largest minority in the country, and one that anyone can join at any time. It's pretty interesting.
Yes, very human.
Yeah.
Everybody's subject to be there.
Right. And likely we will all age into it. It's just part of life. So, so letting people see that there's benefits to hiring people who've experienced life potentially a little bit differently, and sometimes you're going to get an employee who can think outside of the box because, life has thrown them maybe a couple curveballs, and so they figured out how to overcome. So that the tax credits will set an employer all up, and especially with the tax credits. I know when I say that, it probably sounds like, oh gosh, what does that take? But it's literally like 2 sheets of paper, and our boots on the ground understand how to fill that out and where even a small business could put that into their hiring practices. That way they start receiving that, and it can be anything. Up to $9,600, I think, is
per employee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can't take it year after year, but for that initial time that you hire them, it's over a period of time. That first year, you can receive up to $9,600, and that's for a disabled veteran. And there's lots of different classes of people. If you hire, you could get this tax credit. That's why it makes a lot of sense to put it into the application process, and that's how bigger companies are taking advantage of it, right? It's in their applicant tracking system. So that's probably one of the neatest benefits that we can help with. And then we want to help them connect to those candidates through our job fairs. They're completely free for employers. Our website, you can post jobs for free. And you can just connect to candidates, and a lot of these folks come with partner agencies connected to them. So there's a whole team that wants to see this be successful.
Makes sense. So I'm an interested organization. I've heard your boots on the ground help us understand how this all happens. I go to the website, post my job board, and then I get to interact directly with the job seekers at that point.
Yes, you actually could search for them and message them. We have to approve you, so there is that layer of security. Okay. All the employers on our website, we do personally know. If we don't know you, we call you and say, how did you hear about us? And why do you want to post on our job board? And let us tell you a little bit about who we are. But yeah, it's that easy.
And so last year, if you have numbers of the year before, how many people did you play matchmaker for? How many businesses?
Last
year,
how many
individuals?
We roughly had 600 people placed throughout Southern Arizona with our partner businesses.
That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Do you have any, I'm just curious, do you get any information about how long they stay and if attrition or things like that? I mean, if you don't, that's fine. I'm just curious.
No, it's a good question. We don't, because we don't actually know who they are. I could get into all of that. That wouldn't really probably be the funnest radio conversation of like how we track and match whether or not we had an impact. But we don't know who they are because of HIPAA, so we can't do any follow-up. But of the folks that we do know, and we kind of just are staying in touch with them informally, we do see that people stay, or if anything, one person in particular, I got to help him out twice because he was like, I'm ready to grow. What's next for me? And I was like, oh, okay, let's do that. Let's connect you to the next opportunity so you can keep growing and, still working in Tucson.
That's so cool.
And then the relationships that you have with the employers are long-term, which is, definitely a measure of success, because if they were hiring people that were leaving or that it didn't work out, they would probably find another source.
Right.
Yep. So that says a lot. So Frank, for you, you're a few steps ahead, I guess, in the process where you're helping to make sure people get the training before they're into the workforce. So I'm sure Jeremy wants to know about what your numbers are as well.
Just to help quantify how many people you're able to impact.
Absolutely. I think, last year, let me back up a bit. So I'd say about 4 years ago, we were serving 220 participants every year. That has steadily increased over the last 4 or 5 years, where we're now serving 300. And I can say it's directly because of the outcomes. We have an outside agency that measures our impact in the county, and they do it primarily through direct wage increases, and then subsequent years they calculate it as, over time, this is what we expect that they're going to continue to make. And it's incredible. Over the last 13 years, I believe the number is now over $600 million economic impact in Pima County over the last 13 years. And the job attainment rate part was really impressive because think of it this way. We're not a placement agency. So because we focus on in-demand jobs that are here in the county, employers are clamoring for our participants once they graduate. A number of them will even secure a job before they're done with school. So that really helps with the attainment rate. We can also offer a little bit more flexibility. And what I mean by that is we look every year at the programs that are viable. As I said, our primary partner is Pima Community College, but we have consistent meetings with industry, with employers. And if we see a sector that is now becoming more viable, I'll give you an example. Mechatronics, which is automated industrial technology, is what they've renamed it. But it's essentially manufacturing, engineering manufacturing technicians. And that is becoming a huge need in Pima County. So as a nonprofit organization, we can say, all right, we're going to support it. And it just takes as simple as that. That's the decision. We're going to support it. And then we go forward. Now we got to do the whole process of recruitment, getting students who meet our income qualifications to get them through the program. So that flexibility really does allow us a lot to do some great work. And then, of course, what I had shared at the end was the end result, the dollar amount of increase coming into the program versus coming out of the program. I think over the last 13 years, earlier I said it was 33,000. If I include, and these are preliminary numbers, but if I include last year's data, that increases to almost 34,000. So over the last 13 years, $33,800 in direct wage increases. It's impressive.
Yeah.
It is impressive. And just, the direct wage increase, that's what they made before the program versus what they make after the program?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the one other piece I should add as well is return on investment. Everybody likes to talk about that. So again, over the last 13 years, the return on investment for every dollar spent, for every dollar spent, $2.40 goes back into the community, $2.40. Last year, that was $2.56. So all our revenue sources coming in, we're almost tripling it. It's impressive. The investment is worth the effort.
It makes sense. Again, we talk about sustainable solutions to our community challenges. This is more than, this is teaching someone to fish, not just giving them a meal for the day.
And as Sarah said earlier, as she read in my bio, the social equity and the racial, social justice and racial inequity, our work is around inequity. We know that if our participants have equal access and opportunity, they're going to succeed. Our numbers prove it. But as I shared with you earlier, Jeremy, I think the other benefit is their kids. If you really want to help a child in poverty, help their parents, invest in their parents. And because we know that if their parents have a good paying job, they're going to have better access to healthcare, better access to education.
Right. Go down the line.
Yeah, I think it's exactly the right place to tackle it because, everyone talks about, America as a land of opportunity and the American dream. And yet there are so many social systems that are set up to make it easy for some people and really, really difficult for others. And so JobPath directly recognizes that with that, problem with social equity and gets it right at its core and, helps figure out, what are the things in the system that create failures and how do we, support somebody through that. And then the other thing is, early on, Haley mentioned about how they're helping to diversify the workforce because of the different experiences and, sometimes even just how your brain, works that some of the people that go through her programs have. Same thing with you guys. I mean, you guys are also bringing a different person, into the workforce and into these good paying jobs as well.
Yes.
Very important.
Frank, you've shared some good human, I don't want to call them case studies because these are real people, but could you share one or two of these powerful?
And again, without sharing their names, but I'm sure she wouldn't mind if I said it, but one recent one was a graduate who graduated last year, so in 2018. Her story is powerful, very soft-spoken. She grew up on the Navajo reservation up in northern Arizona, surrounded by domestic violence, poverty, addiction, and she struggled. She primarily struggled after her grandmother passed away. Her grandmother was because her parents were addicts, her grandmother was the one that was her light. After her grandmother passed away, she struggled and it took some time to get out of that. She ended up being with somebody. They had a child, and then her partner overdosed on drugs, and she found herself now in a vicious cycle again. And it was hard for her to get out of that. Her doctor actually informed her. She got to the point where he said, "You have 2 months to live. It's your decision at this point." She realized the impact it was having on her child. She did not want to leave her son alone. She wanted to be there. And that's why I say about the hardworking part. She got herself up, realized the direction she needed to go, got herself to school, and that's how she ended up connecting with us. We were able to help her get through the dental assisting program, which is one of the programs we support. Now she's opened her eyes to what's next. But the most important thing, which she shared at graduation, and mind you, soft-spoken woman, 400 people in this room, and you could hear a pin drop. It was incredible. She had everybody in tears because she, as I said, an addict, got herself out of it. Now she's on a path to a great career. Now she's on a path to even higher education. She has goals, and it's not, dental assisting is the first step to whatever the rest of her life is. And what she did and what she's accomplished and what's coming up, I'm excited to get to know her even better.
Oh, it's good for her.
Well, and I think there's just tons of people out there who, their circumstances, even, choices have put them in a position like that. And everybody wants to do better. Everybody wants to do what's right and to be there for their child. But without something like Job Path, no matter how much you want that, it's not always enough. Your desire, your human spirit, it's not always enough.
And as you said, it's what you said earlier, it's equal opportunity, equal access. She did not have the funds to start the program. Dental assisting, dental hygiene programs are very expensive. So organizations like us, and we weren't the only one. We helped her leverage resources, but she also had some other resources. But together, local agencies, nonprofits, other agencies, as I said, worked together to get her through the program.
Love it.
So I don't, this is conscious, capitalism. And so we definitely focus or have a focus on capitalism and good business. And yet today we've got nonprofits in here. But, we think that, number one, as a nonprofit, you still have to sustain. You're still managing money in, you're still managing, money out. And then the other part of it is that, you're also a part of a whole business ecosystem. And so although, you may not be, a traditional capitalist, we're all part of this community ecosystem that and for a conscious capitalism point of view are essential to making it work. So with that in mind, what is it that, what's important, or what are some of the steps that you take or your business plans to ensure sustainability and that you can continue to be serving the public in this way for the long term? Haley?
Well, I think it's being, not to use like a businessy term, but just being agile and always being open to the way that industry can change and new opportunities and, technology changing. Like, things can change so fast. And so just being really open and adaptable to that, and thinking of new funding streams, and, that's kind of our approach, thinking of different business models. And
it makes sense. I mean, I think agile is a perfect word. I mean, you have to not be tied down to how you do it, but why are you doing it, and how are things changing? How do you continue to serve, especially as communities and individuals, and even the businesses that you're serving change? So how do you do that? Like what, just an example maybe of, I know I'm kind of throwing a curveball at you, but just an example of a change that you've had to make along the way.
Well, how about direct coming in and absorbing linkages?
That's a really great example. Really, Jeremy's going to do the interview for me because I'm so new. I'm so new to direct. But that is true. I should probably put that hat back on. That was a way for us to combine administrative costs and then focus more on program. I mean, we have more now to put towards program because we were able to reduce some of the admin.
Great. And just, again, staying open.
Right.
The opportunities are there. How about you, Frank?
It's interesting that you said that, because we are kind of like the opposite way. I would say that our programming was terrific, but we were stagnant. So the board hired me because they really wanted to see, we need to serve more participants. How do we do that? Can you think outside the box? What can we do differently? Because the problem is, it's incremental. I should say, the number of participants going through our program, it's incremental. We know that if we can double those numbers, that's going to have double the impact on the county, and it's going to be an opportunity to do even better work and more work. So in reverse, kind of what you said, Haley, is we were so focused on the program without thinking more strategically on how to grow. And that's where we're focused now. We work with an organization called Social Venture Partners. It was a competitive grant process. We were selected, and they have been tremendous in helping me as even a new executive director, just as a leader in the nonprofit world. This is my first position in a nonprofit world. And again, I worked prior to that at Pima College. So they're getting me to see things that I hadn't seen before and investing in ways, rethinking what nonprofit work means. The illusion is you got to put in a lot of hours and they're not going to pay you anything. If we can get out of that, or you got to invest in your development so that you can figure out new revenues of funding, that requires an investment. So they're getting me to think strategically. Frank, if you want to double the number of participants you currently serve, you're going to have to invest in a development person. You're going to have to invest in this, invest in that, really target your marketing things I'd never thought of before. Has really been impressive in regards to where we can take the organization, because again, the end all deal is we want to end poverty in Pima County. We want to end the inequity in Pima County, and we can do this, but we have to think strategically about it and not think as a nonprofit, but really think as a business.
Yep. So shed the scarcity mindset that a lot of nonprofits have been straddled with for a long time. Yeah, and that's actually, a good example of exactly why, we believe that nonprofits are, perfectly housed within conscious capitalism. And a lot of the principles that are in conscious capitalism, all of them, I guess not a lot of them, it just translates. It doesn't matter. I think Jeremy says all the time, where it's an exchange of, of value, regardless of, if you are amassing a profit and distributing it to shareholders at the end, or if you're reinvesting, or you're distributing it to all of your stakeholders, being the people that you serve, and be able to do something bigger and better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's at the core of everything. It's the value creation, really. How do we innovate and continually find ways? If our organizations are going to sustain, we have to be thinking about tomorrow. We can't just be complacent where we're at today. I saw something really cool at the end of the year. Usually, the countdown to New Year's kind of shows or whatnot are, at least the ones I've historically seemed to catch, are, celebrities that left us this year, and, some of the major headlines and blah, blah, blah. This one was kind of cool. It was things that didn't exist at the turn of the century, which was 18 years ago, and Uber, Airbnb, Tesla, like all these things that are so quickly integrated into our society. Yeah. It's crazy to think back, like, really, that's less than a decade and all these things are here. And to me, it was just a very good example of we constantly have to be looking for ways to keep up. Otherwise, someone else is going to fill that space. And if we want to be sustainable, we want to be the ones to hold on. And granted, your mission's a little bit different. If poverty was gone and we had to close up your office, Frank, I guess, we would help you. That's right. That is sorry your organization had to sunset.
If we can do that, absolutely, that is the goal. I don't want to have a job working in this. If we can end poverty in Pima County, then I can move on to the next county to help them.
Exactly. Or we have a social structure where those things are just naturally taken into account.
We've baked it into our other
we've baked
solutions.
it into everything else that we do. So, and same thing, with linkages, and, we're inclusive, and no matter who you are, we don't have to convince you that there's a place for everybody within, the working community. We just know that. And that's a big part. Like you said, that, outreach and education is a big part of what you guys are doing at linkages. And
yeah, and helping people see that they don't have to just make assumptions, that there can be many facets to somebody and what they're capable of. And, to get the job done, there could be a lot of paths to that end goal. And so just helping employers see that, because especially for small businesses, I think we get that, you're wearing lots of hats anyway, so we can help you see how some of that work can get done.
For sure. We're talking about some languaging of conscious capitalism. One of the concepts that we promote is purpose beyond profit. So as a nonprofit, your purpose is pretty well spelled out. So a lot of organizations, we kind of have to go back to those building blocks. Like, okay, yes, obviously making money is critical, or you won't be here next month. We understand that. But, when the dreamers are cooking up, what is my enterprise going to be about? Usually it's not about well, I'm going to do exactly what everybody else is doing and I'll make money doing it. It's usually you're coming with some level of, I think I can do it better, or I've got a new vision on how things can come to be. So you might not have a challenge with purpose, but I assume the concepts of culture and leadership and getting those in your employ, granted they might be galvanized behind, hey, we want to help eradicate poverty and we want to help these people with special needs get jobs and help employers understand the criticality of that. They might be unified there, but what do you do as leaders to create a culture that allows this service dynamic to propagate?
Well, I think Haley can agree, certainly in your previous role. When you're the executive director, you get to make the decision. You got to figure out how the culture is going to be. So as you heard in my bio, I think really the daring greatly part is I wanted my staff to have the courage to try things. I know that when we try things, doesn't matter if we fail, but we've tried to see where we can improve, what can we do better. So I feel I've been very conscious about that, bringing equity. So we recently we didn't have documented values at JobPath, and we've been around for 20 years, since 1998. And I wanted, and certainly with Social Venture Partners' help, they wanted to help us figure out, well, what do you stand for? And
as an organizational level, what are your values as an organization?
And so our 5 values came up really quickly and almost in unison and unanimous thought was courage, equity, community, integrity, and quality. And that is who we are. And that goes beyond just who we hire, but looking at our participants. And I really feel that that's what guided us was, well, what type of participants do we want for this program? We want them to have courage. They're already more courageous than I'll ever be.
That's a big one, Frank. I don't think I've heard many people articulate courage as a value for the organization.
So
I think it's important, no question, but to have that as a banner value is really telling.
And then the other 4 as well. We want them to be stand up. We want them to give to their community. Last year, our participants, 300 participants, volunteered over 9,000 hours in the community. So that's a 30-hour average. 30 hours on top of their schooling. So we knew that this was something important. And again, as the executive director, we can make those decisions on how we want this culture to go.
I think Frank did a great job. Linkages was much smaller. I mean, 4 staff, and that was including me. Some days I think it was just feeling like, are we all alive? Did we all you're wearing so many hats.
Yes.
And so I think for me, it was probably at that time giving my staff a lot of freedom and trusting them and making sure I had the right people in the right seat, because I didn't have time to micromanage. And direct isn't that much bigger. I don't have a whole lot of time to micromanage there either. And right now, I think I'm just learning. They have a really wonderful culture. It's very family-like, just checking in with people, seeing how people are doing. And I think I really like that, whereas before, and I don't know if it was just the different roles for myself, but I felt a lot of pressure at Linkages to hold it all together. And now I feel like I have a little more breathing space, maybe a little, to just be with people and see how they're doing and see how they, what do they envision the next step to be like, or what do they really want out of their career? And so that's kind of a cool shift for me. I know I'm kind of talking more personally, but it's nice to be with your staff and help them, grow with your organization.
Yeah, it's essential.
And just to add, I'm sorry, we're not much bigger than you. So we have a staff. We have a staff of 7, and so part of the growth of where I expect JobPath to go. Right to your point, Haley, I love the one-on-one conversations I get to have with each of my staff, and that is 7, including myself. So I got 6. And I know as we grow, I'm valuing and cherishing the moments I get to spend with my staff now, because I know as we grow, I'm not going to be able to have that time with them just based on, the growth. And so, yeah, Haley, I totally agree with that. I value that one-on-one time with each of my staff, because you want to see them grow, you want to see them succeed, and that is truly another piece of the puzzle as well.
It's interesting, Haley, what I heard you say, what I really touched on for me is that once you felt like there was someone taking care of you too, then all of a sudden your capacity to be able to help everybody else just expanded and grew. And you really felt like not only, do I have the capacity to do it, but I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I can feel good about supporting everybody else because it's okay that is what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm.
Well, you talk about you didn't have time to do a lot of micromanaging, and I would argue that's probably a good thing. That means that you surrounded yourselves with the right people that you can entrust to do the job. And yes, obviously you want to have rapport and you want to help them develop and to be the best version of themselves as you can within your work structure. But I saw a comic strip. It was just a single box, and the gentleman's leaning over behind somebody typing and says, "No, micromanager is supposed to be hyphenated." I'm like, that is so perfect.
Right?
That's fun.
Well, the other thing that I heard, you say that I thought was just a different way of saying what Frank had said as well. So you don't have time to micromanage, but that means that you also are giving the people the freedom to take risks, the freedom to fail, the freedom to dare, right? And that daring greatly is what takes the courage.
It's very empowering.
Yep.
So if we're crystal balling and you look down the road, I know, Frank, you said you've already gone from 200 participants to 300 in your short time and that you're looking to expand that. Like, what are your goals? What are your targets? If you had your way and could grow this to where you want, what does it look like a few years down the road?
Well, it's kind of what you said earlier. We don't want to exist forever. We should be doing our best to end poverty, and whether that's a structure, and we're not an advocacy organization, but I do envision the future of our organization doing some advocacy work because, as Sarah so rightly pointed out, it's the social systems and the social structures that continue the inequity. So what can we do as an organization to drive that and to really maybe let our outcomes speak to the work ahead and say, look what we've accomplished? Because quite honestly, and this is a fact, the work that the nonprofits and the social services within Pima County over the last 20 years, poverty has actually had an uptick. So what does that say?
Right.
We're doing all of this great work, but it's poverty is actually increasing in our county. So what do we need to do differently in order to end poverty while still having the great work that we're doing? And that's a conversation I just can't have. The conversation needs to happen.
It's an open-ended
question. What the solution is, it's going to take some time to really think through that. So my goal is start those conversations, have Job Path not exist in 15 years. I don't want to help 1,500 participants every year. We should be helping 20, and then it's like, okay, well, then our work's done. Let's get these 20 and be done and have a staff of 1 to do this.
I think one of the things that maybe we focus on to help start making that shift, which is obviously a huge shift and, some ways in the future is, you talked about the ripple effect, right? And so for every dollar that's invested, what does that return in resources, back to the community? And so that's just more wealth. So we're wealth building. And so when you're thinking about the people who or where the wealth is already concentrated, it's like there's more to come. It's not a take from here and now all of a sudden you have less, but you can feel good about helping someone. It's like, no, you invest the money and there's more for everybody. And that's, I think, a big mindset shift because, again, getting back to scarcity versus abundance and where people think that there's some fixed pie and everyone has to protect themselves and protect their own assets as opposed to investing not only because it's a good thing to do, which is the reason to do it, but because it grows for you too.
And let me add one statistic to that really quick. So over the last 13 years, I mentioned the 600 million economic impact, positive impact in the county. What I didn't tell you is the other half of it, a reduction of over 4 million in public assistance. So it's exactly what you're saying. It's not a handout, it's a hand up.
Yep, better way to spend the money.
Yep. It's an long-term investment. So what I heard you say, Frank, is that you're open-minded to where this journey is going to take you, that the programs you have that are in service right now as we're speaking, 2 years from now, that might have a totally different formula because you're asking this open-ended question, how are we going to address our poverty challenge and not answer the question, how do I make this program better?
Right. We know the short-term need will always be there. But again, what I'd like to see is where we're filling those needs with the local talent that we have in this county and lowering poverty to the point where you're eliminating it.
Makes sense. Haley, how about you? You're crystal balling down the road. What does it look like? And I understand that direct, in my words, is more about the whole person, and the special needs and employment is just one dynamic of that. Yes. But with that said, I mean, what does it look like? Where could you take this?
Well, not to like echo Frank, but I think we're also pretty open, one, to just seeing how this acquisition unfolds, and it's unfolding very nicely. I mean, I think it's worked out really well, and then just seeing the opportunities that arise from it. And then I'm still learning. I work for the executive director, Vicky Casino, who I really enjoy, and she's a great visionary. I think she's got lots of ideas, and I'm still, piecing together all these other programs that I'm managing. But ultimately, we want to help people with disabilities live the most independent lives possible. And so there's lots of other programs that Direct does do, and they do provide direct services, even though the Linkages program does not. But I did want to add this statistic just to go off of how it is good business. And that's really all my work with Linkages. I've always felt that way. And that's probably why it was always so easy to show up, because it was never a forced, I didn't have to force myself to think this is the right thing, or, it just makes so much sense. Not only is it the right thing and it can feel good, but business-wise, 92% of people favored businesses that hire people with disabilities. So it's good business there. You're going to get more customers who are loyal to you. And then people with disabilities have over $200 billion in discretionary spending. So I think sometimes we just forget that people with disabilities can, they have choices to make in where they spend.
Ability.
And they have lots of ability, and they have the ability to choose where they're going to spend that money. And why would they spend it with a business if, they don't feel accepted or supported? So it's just a smart business decision.
That makes perfect sense.
So I'm just curious, with the different companies that you either interact with through your your agencies, or that you as a consumer interact with, what are some of your favorite examples of good business or good business partners?
Well, just off the bat, our two biggest programs are the nursing program, which is at Pima Community College, and the aviation technology program, which is also at Pima Community College. So I know you're asking for business, but I would just say right off the bat, our best partner is Pima College. So they provide the training. We have great relationships with them, long-standing relationships since we've been there for 20 years with them. And we're starting to build we already have strong relationships with some of our employers, particularly in those two industries, or those two sectors, those two programs. But what we would like is to really think more holistically and think, how can we work together to really develop or devise a long-term strategic plan on where it becomes a really nice pipeline of bringing great talent to each of their businesses. So I would say it starts off with Pima College, great relationship, and then it's going to map itself out, web itself out into these other industries where we have great relationships, but we haven't really taken the step to think about how can we make it a stronger relationship.
Yeah, I like that, because you're, again, looking at a system. So,
Yes.
We're each kind of different cogs, and we serve, we have our different roles and, where we fit within a supply chain or a system, whatever you want to say. But how do you strategically plan together, again, to be more, more efficient? Where do you partner to become, more efficient, becoming a part of Direct, because, they have this big umbrella of services, and now you fit into that as opposed to, working on your own. So I think, including, Pima College, but then also including industry and strategically planning together. And that way, industry is looking forward at what their needs are. You're tapped in, and you're not, 3 steps behind where you were serving, where industry was, 5 years ago.
And to put some language of conscious capitalism on the table again, we call that stakeholder orientation or stakeholder integration. So your example with Pima College, you're a stakeholder to them. You're program participants are actually going to be the students. You are a conduit, so it makes perfect sense that you guys would collaborate with intention and find a way to both help one another.
Absolutely.
Because your missions are overlapping in that space. And so it's a conscious dynamic to let's work together.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Well, and to really figure out what are the barriers in getting through those. Like, we had a good success story with a call center in town. This happened last summer. They made a call center program that was part-time all the way from training, which often the training is full-time. And it's kind of like, well, if someone needs part-time work, there's a reason. And so they hired someone to build this program for them who came from kind of more our industry, the agency industry, and knew the people. And they were able to hire over 40 people with disabilities within like a month and a half.
Holy cow.
And that's possible if you get the right players at the table and you're willing to talk about, okay, what is the barrier? Well, we can't do your part-time call center position when the training is full-time. So how do we set up those hours and make sure, transportation, it's on the bus system. And so a lot of times, I think, and maybe Frank would agree, like ourselves or our team can, help voice some of that and offer up solutions, because we have seen other businesses get it right.
I would agree.
Yeah, just again, another example of systems and things that are set up, social system structures that people, it's so easy to overlook, and yet they're huge barriers for people who are eager and willing and able to get out there and do it. We just have to have someone stop and look, ask the question, and be willing to do something about it.
Plug them in. Did we not get a chance to ask you any questions about your personal and vocational stories that you want to share?
Well, just briefly, I think because, this is conscious capitalism. Before 2010, so I won't go into all the details, but I was floundering. I had a good job. I was doing consulting work, loved it. I loved being in front of an audience and doing training, but there was something missing. And because of the recession of all things, I had a career shift, and I landed at Pima College about 2 years after that. And when I got to Pima College and saw the students I was serving, or the students that were trying to get into these, they just wanted success and they looked like me. And I was like, I found my calling after that. And that conscious capitalism from that point forward was, I knew where I needed to be. I knew where I wanted to go. And the direction it took me was tremendous. And I feel blessed every day how Job Path came to my way. And the work that we're doing has been tremendous. But you're talking 2010, I was 40 and I did not know where I wanted to go. Getting to Pima College just changed the trajectory of my life.
That's awesome. You're not alone in that, my friends.
Yeah, the power of purpose, not just in business, but for us as individuals. And I think, Haley, you mentioned how important that was for you too, and that you have felt connected, to a sense of personal purpose through linkages and now with Direct.
Absolutely. And I just think there's more to come. I'm so excited, and I feel like I haven't always had the right words during this interview, but I think it's because I'm just in learning mode and sponge mode and trying to absorb it all. But I'm excited to see what comes for linkages and Direct, and how we can just better the lives of people with disabilities. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I mean, we really appreciate it. And I think you've been perfect. And the passion that you have and the message that you conveyed, we're very happy to be able to, to share it. So thank you, Haley, and thank you, Panchito, for being, on the show with us. Yeah, we appreciate you being here and all the good work that you're doing and being a part again of this bigger business community, because again, we're all exchanging value, very important roles. Business couldn't do what it needed to do if we didn't have, partners out there as well.
That's right.
Well, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. And sharing Job Path's story is what I want to do. Thank you.
It's great. And by the way, curiosity that's not a bad attribute by any stretch. If everybody approached their day with curiosity, with an intent on how am I going to do it better than yesterday, we'd be in a good spot. Okay, a couple things we'd like everybody to know about. If you want to dig into the Conscious Capitalism community a little bit further, we've got a great opportunity coming up Thursday, March 28th at Goodman's. We are excited to be doing a collaboration between Conscious Capitalism and Local First Arizona. We're starting a new education series that we're calling Rising the Tides, which is all about building community equity. And the focus of this event is going to be stakeholder orientation. We've got Adam Goodman of Goodman's is going to be presenting and sharing his story, and Gina Murphy-Darling of Mrs. Green's World are going to give us some firsthand examples. We're going to give a lot of information about how you would go about embodying some of these principles of stakeholder orientation into the workplace Monday morning when you show back up and the rubber hits the road. So that's March 28th. Let's see. That's all our social media. You can find information on how to register for that. Also want to continue to let everybody know that the International Conference for Conscious Capitalism is April 23rd through the 25th in Phoenix at the Sheridan Wild Horse Pass. And anybody interested in that, again, seek Sarah or myself out. We can give you some more information and hope you get some access. What else we got? Next podcast.
Yeah, next podcast, March 26th. So, tune in live if you want to, hear it firsthand. Or, of course, we're always on demand. You can listen to us over and over and over.
Right.
Just go to Tucson Business Radio X. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.